Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my favourite video to film. I have filmed one of these videos every year since I've had this channel, so this is the fourth time that I've made this video and I just love making it and planning it each year because today I'm going to be talking about my autumn book recommendations. Autumn is my favourite time of year. I always, every year without fail, have a bit of a reading slump in the summer. I really struggle to get motivated to read in the summer, I think just because there's so much more to do outside of the house. But then as soon as September hits, it's like this little sprinkling of magic where all I want to do is sit inside, curl up under a blanket and read. This year is no different, and if you, like me, are feeling that same urge to pull up a blanket, curl up for the day and lose yourself in a book, then hopefully you'll find this video helpful. Ivy's joining me in the corner down here, so if you hear little crinkling sounds, she's currently playing with her little texture book. And there's also a squeaky hippo, so you might hear a little squeak as well. So go and make yourself a comforting warm drink, get cozy, and let's get straight into these books. Let's dive straight in. So the first book I want to recommend is actually the book I have just finished most recently, and that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first of Brandon Sanderson's secret project books that he brought out recently. It's set in the world of the Mistborn series. I read the first 3 Mistborn books, I want to say like 10 years ago. I really remember so little from those books, and I haven't read any other books by Brandon Sanderson, so just want to put that out there at the beginning that even though this is a book set in the world of some of his other books, you don't need to have read those other books to enjoy this book. I'm sure that there are little things that you would appreciate and get more if you had read those books, but you can still enjoy and read this book without the backlog of Brandon Sanderson's other works. It is a standalone fantasy novel following a young woman called Tress, and Tress lives on this really tiny island on another planet, and her thing is collecting cups. That's what she does. She loves collecting cups, and she particularly loves collecting cups because they give her a chance to go and visit her friend Charlie. Charlie is the Duke's son, but he pretends that he's the gardener. And everything changes when Charlie is sent off on a ship to go and find a bride. Charlie tries to escape this path that he is placed on, and in doing so ends up being captured by an evil sorceress who traps him in her kind of fortress. And Tress decides to be brave and go off and rescue Charlie. This book was inspired, I believe, by The Princess Bride, and in the acknowledgements, Brandon Sanderson explains that some of his inspiration was The Princess Bride, but if she had gone in search of the farm boy. As you can see from the copy of my book, I annotated and tabbed so much of this book. I don't really annotate fantasy books very often, but this book just had so many beautiful quotes, such incredible character development, such a depth to it. I absolutely love this book, and I'd recommend it if you like cozy fantasy, if you like nostalgic feeling books, and if you love adventure stories. The next book I want to recommend is one that I read last autumn, which is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. I'm going to just read the synopsis of this book because I feel like it explains it better than I will. Effie has always believed in fairy tales. She's had no choice. Since childhood, she's been haunted by visions of the Fairy King and found solace only in the pages of Angarad. I still don't know how you pronounce this. Emrys Meridian's beloved epic about a mortal girl who falls in love with the Fairy King and then destroys him. Effie's tattered copy is all that's keeping her afloat through her stifling first term at her prestigious architecture college. So when the late author's family announces a contest to redesign his house, Effie feels certain this is her destiny. But Highreath Manor is an impossible task, a musty, decrepit estate on the brink of crumbling into a hungry sea. And when Effie arrives, she finds she isn't the only one who's made a temporary home there. Preston Heluri, a stodgy young literature scholar, is studying Meridian's papers and is determined to prove her favourite author is a fraud. As the two rival students investigate the reclusive author's legacy, piecing together clues through his letters, books and diaries, they discover that the house's foundation isn't the only thing that can't be trusted. There are dark forces, both mortal and magical, conspiring against them, and the truth may bring them both to ruin. This one is perfect if you're looking for a dark academia style book. If you love slightly more gothic tales. Most of this book takes place in kind of a creepy old house, and that is one of my favourite settings for a book. Next up in fantasy, we have a duology, which is The Queen's Rising and The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. I think I've mentioned a Rebecca Ross book in every autumn book recommendations video I've done. Rebecca Ross is just the perfect atmospheric storyteller. She writes stories that set you in her worlds so vividly, and I just love them for autumn time. But I don't think that I've talked about The Queen's Rising. So this, I believe, is actually her debut novel, and it's a young adult fantasy. The other two I mentioned were more like adult fantasies, but this is a young adult fantasy. However, I feel like you can enjoy it at any age. Again, we have a kind of academic setting. In this world, some people are born with a particular talent or a passion, and these 5 passions are art, music, dramatics, wit and knowledge. People go to these kind of schools, these training places where they are trained their whole life to pursue that passion and become really good at it. And Brianna ends up in one of these schools, but she doesn't really have an obvious leaning to one of the passions, and she spends her whole time really dabbling in each one and changing which passion she's studying every year until she finally settles on knowledge. Ends up getting her a little bit entangled in a rebellious plot that is brewing in her kingdom. I just had to take a little break to settle Ivy, but we're back. Definitely recommend this one for a cozy, atmospheric, romantic fantasy. The next 2 books I want to talk about are mystery novels. Autumn for me is definitely the time for mystery novels, and I have 2 that I want to recommend to you. So we have 2 different ends of the spectrum when it comes to mystery novels. We've got a cozy mystery and then more of a thriller kind of mystery. So let's talk about the cozy mystery first, and that is The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This is Bake Off, but imagine Bake Off is set in a creepy old manor in the autumn. Oh, and there's also been a murder. So we literally are following a baking competition that is very much like the Bake Off setup, except for the fact that the contestants all have to stay in the Mary Berry character's house as they're competing, and she lives in this old kind of crumbling manor house. I love this book. I feel like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it is also a genuinely good mystery. I don't think I guessed how it ended. The host of this baking competition is called Betsy Martin, and she is literally Mary Berry in a character. There's also a character that's like Paul Hollywood. I sometimes find cozy mysteries can be a little bit hit and miss for me. Sometimes they can just be a little bit too tongue-in-cheek, that the mystery side to it falls flat for me. But I felt like this was the perfect blend of those 2 parts of cozy mystery, where it was cozy and just an easy, light, quick read, but there was a genuine mystery going through it that was intriguing. So definitely recommend this one if you're into cozy mystery books. And then on the other end of mystery, we have The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, which is definitely more on the thriller, slightly more intense end of the spectrum. In this book, we follow a character who wakes up in the middle of a forest and he has no idea who he is, what's going on. All he knows is that there is this name, Anna, going around his mind, and he needs to find her. As he goes about his day, he finds that Evelyn Hardcastle, who lives in this house, is murdered. And the next day he wakes up again, remembers the previous day, but now he's in a different body. As the story goes on, he is trying to work out what's happened with Evelyn Hardcastle and solve the mystery of who has murdered her. I won't say any more than that, but this book is so twisty and gripping and intriguing, and I flew through this book. It's over 500 pages, I think. Yeah, it's over 500 pages, and I think I read this in like 3 days, and I could not put it down. I was thinking about it when I wasn't reading it, and it kept me up reading it when I was tired, and to me that is the mark of a brilliant book. It's creepy without being scary, but I would definitely recommend it to fans of Stephen King type thrillers. It felt kind of similar in tone to me as a Stephen King book. So I have 2 more books left to talk about. I'm just gonna class these as miscellaneous because I don't really know what genre they would fit in. The first one is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I haven't got the physical copy with me because I actually just lent it to my mum to read. This book is Willy Wonka, but instead of a chocolate maker, it's a children's author. And we have this competition by this renowned, beloved children's writer who has kind of disappeared for a few years, but he has now written the final book in this big, long, beloved children's book series. But he's only written 1 copy, and there will only be 1 copy, and so he holds this competition for somebody to win this 1 copy of this final book. And he invites various people to join in this competition, and one of those is our main character, who is a teacher's aide. I don't know if that's a teaching assistant, but she works in a school, and she really wants to adopt this boy that she helps to teach, and basically she just doesn't have enough money to be approved to adopt him. And one of the things that really joins these 2 together is their love for this author's books. And so when she gets invited to this competition, it's such an exciting thing for the 2 of them. And obviously her motivation is that she wants to make money to be able to adopt this boy. This book was so heartwarming. It moved me to tears. It was just like a lovely warm hug of a book by the end. And there's also it's a really cool setting because we visit this author's island. He lives on a whole island, and he has made this island to be like the setting of his children's books, which are set in Clock Island. So his whole island is set out like a clock with different things happening on the different segments. Kind of reminded me of the Hunger Games island in the second book. But such a unique and heartwarming story, and one that you can kind of sit down and read in one sitting. Clapping. Clap, clap, clap. Clap. Can you do that? You can! Clap, clap, clap. I've just learned to clap over the last couple of days, and it was the cutest thing. Clap, clap, clap. So the final book that I want to recommend for this autumn is a recent release, and I'm currently in the middle of listening to it as an audiobook, and that is The Burial Plot by Elizabeth McNeil. I'm currently, I think, exactly halfway through, 55%. This book is very Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier or Jane Eyre kind of esque. We follow Bonnie, who is a 19-year-old woman, and she has left her kind of destined life behind. She was betrothed to this man that she didn't love. She ends up encountering a man called Crawford, who is a little bit of a dodgy guy, making money out of swindling people. She's very attracted to Crawford and falls in love with him, and as a result is kind of willing to help him in some slightly dodgy stuff, and as a result ends up as a housekeeper in an old mansion with a man called Mr. Moncrief, whose wife has just recently died. His house is in need of restoration, otherwise he's going to lose this big expensive house that's been in his family for generations. So I haven't finished this book yet, but I can already tell that it's going to be one of those books that I really enjoy. If you enjoy a kind of gothic, historical type story, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. And those are all of my autumn book recommendations for this year. I will link all of my previous autumn book recommendation videos in the description, because I've made a few of these before and each time I try not to repeat the same books. So every one of those videos will have a different set of book recommendations. So if you're looking for even more autumn book recommendations, then definitely go and check those out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know which books you're excited to read this autumn. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you considered subscribing and liking this video. Your support means so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video.